Welcome everyone to another quick live stream here of 1 week with AMD AM5 Ryzen 7000 series. And my question to myself and the ecosystem: do you need DDR5-6000 memory? Because initially I had just brought 5600 megahertz, which wasn't even stable at that. So fair enough, it was like Intel XMP ready, whatever ready means there. So I spared no efforts and got also Ultrathin Z5 RGB Red Dot Design Award winner. 6000, of course smaller. That is my grief here with this stuff. I said in my initial AM5 video, I need memory, right? We build open source here, so the more memory the better, which is why I went with the fastest 65 gigabyte to get started here. And then I regretted a little bit when I saw the performance. So I went out and got the 6000 memory, which so many people proclaim the sweet spot for AM5. And I have to report, I can't barely manage an improvement over the other that was. So 5600 was not stable, and with this Corsair, and so that was theoretically 5600. Where's even the subtiming? Whatever that was. Certainly less than here's this CL, so that is DDR5-6000 CL 3636 3690 96, and this was 40, I think. 40, whatever. So I can sometimes measure like up to 2.5%, but your mileage may vary, right? So initially it's like also if you run single thread, then of course the single core has so much memory bandwidth, like basically also memory bandwidth, that it doesn't matter, right? And if you run multi-threaded, multi-core stuff, this epic thread ripping, embarrassingly parallel open source compilations that we do here, and where you actually need the memory bandwidth, then it's like 1.28 maybe. However, before you run out, so basically no, I would say you don't need this. This is like some seconds of Linux kernel compiling. Say, wow, 7 seconds or 9 seconds faster, well, of 4 minutes, right? Instead of 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 53 or 52. However, I have to say, so there is a huge variation. So benchmarking this is also why I didn't create some charts. Maybe if you share, like, and subscribe enough, maybe I make a test. The problem is it takes a whole afternoon to go through all the timings and test everything between 3200 and 6000 to see how that scales. Right now I don't have the time for that. However, it is extremely frustrating that the memory training and boosting, turbo boosting and stuff has more variations than you see here. This is just some runs in between. It's like, 2.1% slower. It's like, also, single threaded 2.1% slower. This is how much heat is already saturated in your cooling system, how much it boosts the feeling of the CPU, the moon and the stars and stuff. So it can be a tiny little bit faster, at least for this workloads. Your AAA gaming may vary or stuff. Also, I should say, so initially I was a little bit frustrated, so I should also then point out that this Corsair memory advertised 5600, I already was wondering, is my CPU a potato? Is this Gigabyte X670E Aorus master board garbage? Because it didn't reach 5600 megahertz. No, it is not necessarily. So with this memory I can indeed clock this at 6000 megahertz. I believe I did on the more live stream compilation stuff. It survived that. I usually compiling some stuff. So like running some Windows stuff, it's like, that's not a test, right? Build Linux kernel, build LVM Clang, build Firefox, and then you know whether your system is stable. And I can even a little bit overclock this. So this is 3696. So I'm running this right now, live streaming from this machine with 34, 36, 36, and then I believe 94, 92 or something, and then even some sub timings. The other ones, all the other ones, a tiny little bit. decreased. I should also additionally point out, so I installed the latest BIOS, so this stuff remains glitchy, right? USB glitchy. Ethernet on this machine, on Linux, for some crazy reason, completely buggy. It often loses the PCIe link. I never had that ever, so I hope that is software tweakable. Would be really shame if I would need to RMA this bloody board over. I never had this, so not on SG Octane, not on a G5, not on nothing, on an Athlon 600, 3Com, whatever, Etherlink card. It is crazy, right? 2022, you get the latest and greatest, and your 2.5 gig Ethernet stuff is not working stable on a freaking 1 gigabit switch. So yeah, USB is not as bad. It's sometimes a little bit near. Ethernet on this particular board, a total potato right now. And even with the latest BIOS update, previous video, I installed the latest 8. Probably should be visible here. All right, this is an earlier. This was before the BIOS update. So I have F8A, previously F7E. Didn't really change a thing. Also, I found some other crazy options. Previous video, right? I found some options like the iGPU, previous live stream, has, because I always complain about auto is usually enabled and then you have auto disabled and stuff. The iGPU option is auto, forces, I think forces with S, auto, forces and disable. When usually it's auto, disable, enable, or variations of thereof, forces. And also I think in my testing, the iGPU did not on auto disable. So for this testing, I disabled the iGPU with disable, because auto with a DGPU plugged in there didn't disable that. I still had it in Linux. And last but not least, even this BIOS does not produce a stable XMP clock, previous video, with neither of those. So both, because previous video, the BIOS peak bugs, always you have to enable some memory auto-tuner thing to even use XMP. And then this latest BIOS from the other day, I flashed today, F8A, is still aggressively increasing the subtimings over what is in the XMP profile. So neither with the Corsair kit nor with this Trident kit does the BIOS by default produce a working system. You have to manually override the subtimings to the XMP values, increase them significantly, right? So the auto-tuning, memory subtiming, hundreds at times, right? Instead of 800, 600, and instead of 570 something, 400 something. So by 100 subtiming clock ticks, aggressively over-tuned it. Sure, it boots. I mean, you could argue they do this for benchmarking. I wouldn't even be surprised if they do this for benchmarking. So Windows YouTube gamers have like a fast game, but it's not stable, right? It does not survive. At times even Geekbench, right? I had once even Geekbench of all things here error out with LZMA or whatever assertion. And otherwise, I have everything from LVM Clang miscompilations, like with this auto-tunings that you need to die back, to spontaneous system resets and reboots, just because probably I don't even know why. I would expect it just corrupts this, but I slightly wonder how that works, that with too corrupt data, the thing at times spontaneously resets. So yeah, so much to BIOS quality. Anyway, long story short, you don't need DDR6000. Don't listen to some people who tell you that is a sweet spot. I tested that for you. It's like, yeah, your mileage may vary. And this is even already with probably PBO negative curve offsets and overriding some boost frequency of 100, for me right now even 200 megahertz max boost frequency override appears to be stable so far. Knock on plastic wood. Anyway, quick shout out there. I hope that is helpful for your stuff. And after my initial disappointment, the CPU and board can indeed clock 6000, even though a bit overclocked and stuff. Hope you learned something and enjoyed this. Don't forget to share, subscribe, Patreon or YouTube membership, all the good stuff. And have a good day or night, and hope to see you soon for all the next in-depth tech stuff to come.